My whole life I was told, your mom did everything for you. Your success is thanks to her. And I believed it. Until I read a letter. After my aunt's funeral. That's when I realized everything I was proud of had been built on a lie. On silence. And on someone else's sacrifice, the kind no one wanted to talk about. Not even me. There were two kinds of silence in my childhood home. The first was the tired silence. The kind that settled over the kitchen at 2 a.m. when my mother got home from a double shift and stared into the fridge like it owed her something. The second was sharp, cold, punishing silence. The kind that followed me when I asked too many questions or left my shoes in the hallway. I learned early which kind to keep. My name is Nina Salgado. I'm 24 now, a nurse, freshly certified and clinging to the edge of financial independence. But long before any of that, before the hospital badge or the sleepless nights of studying, I was the invisible child in a very loud house. We lived in a third-floor walk-up in the South Bronx, in a building that smelled like bleach and wet laundry year-round. My mother, Rosa, was the kind of woman people called strong, when they really meant hardened. She had me when she was 19, and I don't think she ever forgave me for the timing. She worked. Constantly. Hospital housekeeping, then nursing homes, then back-to-back gigs doing elder care in private homes. And she never missed a chance to remind me how hard she worked. Usually after slamming a plate down in front of me or yelling about lights left on. My father, Eddie, was technically around. He floated in and out of our lives like a drafty window. When he was home, he drank Modelo straight from the can and watched old boxing matches, mumbling about how the world owed him something he never got. He had quick hands. Quicker excuses. They fought often. Loudly. Sometimes about money. Sometimes about me. Sometimes about nothing at all. I'd press myself into the corner of my bed, counting to 100, pretending that if I didn't move, the tension wouldn't find me. School was my only escape, not because I loved it but because it was quiet in a different way. Predictable. Teachers didn't yell if you did your work. There was food. Heat. Sometimes, when I was lucky, a kind adult who remembered my name. But home? Home was a place I had to earn. Mom wasn't cruel exactly. She fed me. Kept the lights on. Bought me clothes, mostly secondhand, sometimes stained. She wasn't the kind of mother who left bruises, just one who left you unsure if you were wanted. The only time she really noticed me was when I got sick. Then suddenly I was her poor baby, her little girl. She'd make soup and smooth my hair, all tenderness for 48 hours, until I got better and she vanished back into the grind. Birthdays were hit or miss. Some years there'd be cake from the bodega, other years just a tired shrug and a, "Didn't I just give you money last week?" The only constants were her stories, the ones she'd trot out for guests. How she raised me alone, how she worked 3 jobs, how she never asked for a damn thing from anyone. And I believed her. For years I believed her. I believed her when she said she didn't trust the system. That child support from Eddie wasn't worth the drama. That we couldn't afford after-school programs or field trips, or ballet like the other girls in my class. I believed her when she said it was just us, Rosa and Nina, against the world. So when she asked me to spend that first summer with my cousin Yvette in Connecticut, when I was just 10, I didn't question it. I packed my little duffel bag and hugged her goodbye, thinking I'd be back before the new school year. I didn't come home for almost 5 years. The first thing I noticed about Mari's house was the quiet. Not the Bronx kind of quiet, filled with sirens humming in the distance or neighbors shouting over music. No, this was a suburban quiet. A curtain drawn, carpet muffled, central air kind of quiet. The kind that felt eerie at first, like I'd stepped onto a TV set where everything was too neat, too calm. I remember standing on her porch, clutching my duffel bag, staring at the chipped blue paint on her front door. It was nothing fancy, just a small 2-bedroom in a Connecticut town I couldn't even pronounce yet. But it might as well have been a palace. Mari opened the door before I could knock. She was in her work scrubs, hair pulled back, a pair of glasses perched on her nose. I braced myself for a look of inconvenience, the same one Mom always wore when I asked for anything. But Mari just smiled. "There she is," she said, like I was someone worth waiting for. I stepped inside. The air smelled like lemon cleaner and something warm, cinnamon maybe. There were pictures on the walls. Not staged portraits but real photos. Yvette, Mari's daughter, and Mateo is Mari's only son, older than Yvette by 3 years. They was in a Halloween costumes, Mari and her friends at a cookout, a blurry snapshot of a dog I never met. She didn't ask me if I was hungry. She just handed me a plate of arroz con pollo and sat across from me while I ate, chatting like I was already part of her world. And I think, even then, something in me softened. I was supposed to be there for a few weeks while Mom got back on her feet. Weeks turned into months. Months became years. Nobody really explained it. Mom would call occasionally, short, clip conversations where she told me to listen to Mari and be grateful. But she never asked if I was happy. Never offered to visit. And I didn't ask to come home. Because for the first time in my life I had space. Mari was a nurse at a local clinic, practical, smart, never the coddling type. But she noticed things. She noticed when I stayed up too late reading. She noticed when I outgrew my shoes. She noticed when I cried in the middle of the night but didn't ask why, just left a glass of water and a folded blanket on the couch. She made rules: no TV after homework, help with chores on weekends, phone off by 9:30. But they weren't punishments, they were structure. Predictable. Safe. I shared a room with Yvette, Mari's daughter, who was 2 years older and effortlessly cool. She played soccer, painted her nails dark colors, and had a rotating cast of best friends. We weren't close at first. She made it clear she hadn't asked for a tag-along cousin, but Mari never treated me like a guest. She treated me like a daughter. By 7th grade, she had me enrolled in the local school. She bought me uniforms, took me to doctor's appointments, signed my permission slips. When parent-teacher conferences rolled around, she was there, never Mom. People started referring to her as my aunt. Some as my guardian. And eventually, though she never said it out loud, Mari just became the person I belonged to. It wasn't perfect. Yvette resented sharing her space. Mari worked long hours. And I still carried the shadow of who I'd been before, the jumpy, too quiet kid who flinched when voices got loud. But something was changing. I was changing. I made friends. I joined the science club. I started dreaming about things beyond survival, things like college, travel, a life where I didn't have to flinch at the sound of keys in the door. And Mari, she was always there. Not just in the big moments, the school play, the middle school graduation, but in the everyday ways that matter more. She made me feel seen without demanding I perform for it. Loved without condition. She never once called herself my mother. But in every way that counted, she was. And I didn't understand how much she had given me until the day Mom finally showed up again. It was the spring before I started high school. Mari had taken the day off work because she said we needed to talk. When I got home, Mom was sitting at the kitchen table, arms crossed, eyes cold. "Nina," she said, "it's time to come home." And just like that, the quiet began to crack. Blood, quietly. Part 3, Someone Else's Child. She looked out of place in Mari's kitchen. My mom sat at the table like she was waiting for a dentist appointment, arms folded tight over her chest, lips pressed into a flat line. Her hair was flat-ironed, her nails perfectly red, too polished for a woman who hadn't seen me in almost 2 years. Mari stood by the sink, arms loose at her sides, but there was a tension in her posture I hadn't seen before, like she was holding herself back from something. "Hi," I said. No hug. No smile. "No, I missed you." My mom just looked me up and down and said, "You've gotten taller." I didn't know what to say, so I sat down across from her, the silence so thick it felt like another person in the room. Mari cleared her throat. "We thought it was best to talk together." "Talk about what?" I asked, though I already felt it in my gut. My mom leaned forward. "It's time to come home, Nina. You've been here long enough." Just like that. As if I'd been on vacation. As if home was still a room waiting for me, not a place I'd spent years trying to forget. Mari didn't speak at first. She let the words hang there. Then she said calmly, "She's in school here. She's doing well. She's stable. She's my daughter," my mom snapped. "Not yours." That landed like a slap. Not just for Mari, but for me too. Because it wasn't just about biology. It was about ownership. About who got to claim me. And for the first time I realized my mom didn't want me back because she missed me. She wanted to reassert control. "She needs to be with her family," my mom added, like Mari had just been a very responsible babysitter who'd overstayed her shift. "I am her family," Mari said, her voice still low. But there was steel in it now. They argued quietly at first, then louder. Words like custody, responsibility, respect. I stayed silent. I didn't know how to explain the weight I felt in my chest, like someone was asking me to cut off a limb and pretend I wouldn't bleed. At one point, my mom turned to me, her voice softening. Nina, don't you miss your own bed? Your friends from the neighborhood? Your life? I thought about the hallway back in the Bronx, the flickering lights, the mildew in the corner of the bathroom ceiling, the cold silences after my dad slammed doors. I thought about eating cereal for dinner while my mom watched novellas and ignored me. I thought about the time I told her a boy was bullying me at school and she said, "Figure it out." And then I thought about this house. Mari's house. The warmth of her kitchen. The quiet. I swallowed hard. I want to stay here. My mom's expression shifted. She blinked, stunned for a moment, like I'd just betrayed her. "You're my daughter," she said again, as if repeating it would make it true in the way she wanted. Mari stepped in then, not cruelly, not dramatically, but with that same calm that had anchored me for years. "She's not a possession. She's a person. And she's thriving here. That should matter." My mom didn't respond. She just stood up, grabbed her purse and said, "Don't come crying to me when she turns on you." That was the last time she came to Mari's house. She called every now and then, more out of obligation than affection, but she never brought up moving me back again. And I never asked her to. That night, I sat on the couch next to Mari, the TV on low, my knees pulled to my chest. "You know I'm not trying to replace her, right?" she said softly. "I know," I whispered. She hesitated. Then added, "But I chose you." And I think that was the first time I understood the difference between someone who gives you life and someone who gives you love. Blood, quietly. Part 4, the quiet years. The years that followed weren't loud. There were no dramatic fights, no surprise reunions, no weepy phone calls begging me to come back home. My mom drifted back into the periphery of my life like fog, there but not solid. She'd call once every few months, usually on birthdays or holidays, and the conversations were brief, like check-ins for a parole officer. She asked if I was still in school, if Mari was treating me okay. She never asked what I was learning, what I liked, who I was becoming. And I never offered. Mari, on the other hand, was always around. Steady. Not intrusive, never the helicopter type, but present in that quiet way that builds trust over time. She'd make extra servings of my favorite rice and beans on hard days. Leave notes on the fridge during exam weeks. Pick up a pack of my favorite pens if she saw them on sale. She never said "I love you" casually. It wasn't her style. But she showed it in ways that were undeniable. High school passed in a blur of tests, cafeteria politics, and late-night cram sessions. I wasn't the popular kid, or the rebel, or the theater girl with eyeliner and a Tumblr page. I was the in-betweener, the one people liked well enough but rarely noticed. And honestly, I was okay with that. Quiet was safe. Quiet gave me room to breathe. Yvette and I finally settled into something like sisterhood, a little sharp, a little affectionate. We'd bicker over borrowed hoodies and tangled earbuds but cried together the day her first boyfriend dumped her. She taught me how to use eyeliner without looking like a raccoon. I helped her pass biology by staying up late quizzing her with homemade flashcards. We were different in ways that mattered. She craved attention. I recoiled from it. She wanted to be seen on Instagram, at parties, at school events. I just wanted to survive and maybe, just maybe, build a life that didn't feel like I was drowning all the time. Still, she never made me feel like an outsider. Not really. And neither did Mari. Mari never tried to make me earn my place in her home. She treated my presence like a given, like I belonged, no questions asked. And because of that, I began to believe it too. But there were reminders. Subtle ones. Like the way my mom would still send text messages with phrases like, "You know I didn't have to let you go," or "You think she loves you more than I do?" Like the time I overheard one of Mari's coworkers ask if I was her real daughter, and Mari hesitated before saying, "Close enough." Or when my dad, who had mostly disappeared, resurfaced with a Facebook friend request and a comment under one of my photos. "Still my little girl." That one made my stomach turn. I didn't reply. I focused on school. I got good grades. I applied to colleges with Mari's help. She drove me to campus tours, helped me fill out FAFSA forms, coached me through my scholarship essays. My mom never offered to help, and by then, I'd stopped expecting her to. When I got into nursing school, a solid, reputable program that came with a decent aid package, Mari cried. Not a loud sob, but the kind of tears you wipe away fast, almost embarrassed. "You did this," I said to her. "No," she replied. "You did. I just made sure the road stayed open." And for the first time, I believed it might actually be true. Still, a part of me couldn't quite rest. There was always a whisper in the back of my mind, a leftover voice from childhood, my mom's voice that said, "Don't get too comfortable. Nothing is ever really yours." and I'd spent too long in silence to ignore it completely. Blood quietly. Part 5, What We Don't Say. The first year of nursing school felt like drowning in slow motion. Everyone told me it would be hard, but they didn't explain the kind of exhaustion that crawls into your bones and refuses to leave. It wasn't just the coursework, though that alone was brutal. It was the pace, the competition, the way professors threw acronyms like grenades and expected us to catch them midair. I was barely keeping up. My classmates had parents who paid rent, sent care packages, called with reminders to rest. I had 2 jobs and a Metro card that was always one trip away from empty. Mari did everything she could. She drove me to clinicals when I missed the bus, packed snacks in my tote bag, took on extra shifts at the clinic when I told her tuition costs had gone up again. She never complained, but she looked tired. At first, I chalked it up to stress. The hours. Her age. She brushed off her coughs and occasional nausea with a wave of her hand. Just a bug, she'd say. Nothing soup won't fix. I didn't press. I wanted to believe her. But even back then, in the quiet moments when she left the room and I was alone with my thoughts, I felt something looming. A shift in the air. And I didn't know how to name it. My mom called once that semester. Just once. She'd heard I got into nursing school from a cousin, and her tone was half bride, half passive aggression. I guess Mari finally made a nurse out of you, she said. She must be so proud of her little project. Her words stung more than I let on. I hung up quickly and didn't call back. That winter, Mari missed my student award dinner. It wasn't a big deal, just a recognition thing for students with over a 3.5 GPA. But she promised to be there. I scanned the crowd for her for 30 minutes before accepting that she wasn't coming. Later that night, I found her asleep on the couch in her scrubs, an untouched dinner on the coffee table, her phone buzzing with a reminder she'd missed. She looked pale. Smaller somehow. Why didn't you tell me you were sick? I asked, kneeling beside her. She woke with a start, blinking. What? You've lost weight. You missed the dinner. You're always tired. Something's wrong. She shook her head. I just forgot. I'm okay, Nina. I promise. But she wasn't. I didn't know then, not yet, that she was keeping a secret bigger than I could imagine. I didn't know that the woman who carried me through every setback was carrying something fatal inside her own body. What I did know was this: Mari didn't like to be seen as weak. So I didn't push. I let her lie to me, not because I believed her, but because I wasn't ready for the truth. In some ways, I was still that little girl who learned to survive by not asking too many questions. But the silence was shifting again. And this time it was coming for both of us. Blood quietly. Part 6, The Things We Owe. The official diagnosis came in March. Pancreatic cancer. Late stage. Rapid progression. Words that didn't sound real even when they were printed in black and white on a sheet of paper I held with trembling hands. Mari had waited too long. She said she didn't want to worry me. Said she didn't want to get in the way of school. As if her dying could be something to politely schedule around finals. I didn't cry in the doctor's office. I nodded, took notes, asked questions. Clinical. Focused. The nurse practitioner looked at me like she couldn't figure out if I was heartless or in shock. I wasn't sure myself. When we got home, Mari made tea and turned on the TV like it was any other Thursday. I sat across from her, staring at her hands, thinner than I remembered, the veins more pronounced. How long have you known? I asked. She didn't look at me. Couple months. You didn't tell me. You had enough on your plate. That's not your decision. She finally looked up. Her eyes were tired but still sharp. Maybe not. But I made it anyway. I wanted to scream. To break something. To throw my textbooks across the room and demand an explanation for every moment she chose to carry this alone. But all I could do was whisper, "You should have told me." Mari reached for my hand. "You've always had to be strong, Nina." I didn't want to add more weight. "I'm not strong," I said, tears finally blurring my vision. "I'm just tired." She squeezed my fingers. That's what strength feels like. In the weeks that followed, everything blurred together. Doctor's visits. Chemo consults. Long nights where Mari coughed until she vomited. I took a leave of absence from one job. Cut my class load in half. Spent every extra minute trying to hold her together. Yvette came home less and less. Mateo only showed up when Mari needed a signature or when the social worker mentioned estate planning. I wanted to hate them, but mostly I just felt empty. One night, while reorganizing the kitchen to make room for Mari's medication, I found a box tucked behind the dishware. Inside were receipts, loan documents, and a thick manila envelope labeled with my name. I didn't open it. Not yet. I couldn't. Because something told me whatever was inside it would change everything. And I wasn't ready. Not yet. Blood, quietly. Part 7, the letter. Mari passed away on a Monday morning. It was quiet. Too quiet. I'd gotten up early to make her oatmeal, the kind she never really liked but could still manage to eat. When I brought the bowl into her room, her breathing was shallow, uneven. I sat with her, held her hand, whispered something I don't remember what. And then she was gone. I didn't cry at first. I cleaned the bowl. I made her bed. I called the hospice nurse and then the funeral home. I answered questions in a voice I barely recognized, rattling off medications, allergies, dates, like I was just ticking off a checklist at school. I only broke when I went to take down the photo she kept by her bedside, one of me and her and Yvette from the county fair 3 summers ago. We all looked sunburned and happy, cotton candy stuck to our hands, Mari squinting from the sun. I sat on the edge of her bed, that photo in my lap, and sobbed until I couldn't feel my legs. The funeral was small. Yvette cried. Mateo didn't. There were flowers, murmured prayers, a priest who mispronounced Mari's name twice. My mom showed up late, hugged me with stiff arms, and left before the service ended. In the chaos that followed, the sorting of belongings, the lawyer meetings, the not-so-subtle greed from Mari's children, I almost forgot about the envelope. Almost. I found it again while packing up her nightstand. My name in Mari's looping cursive still stared back at me like it had been waiting. I sat down on the floor and opened it. Inside was a letter, several pages long. And tucked into the back, a photocopy of a loan statement. A second mortgage. Taken out the summer before my final year of nursing school. I read the first few lines and felt my pulse stutter. I didn't want to burden you while you were in school, but you deserve to know the truth. She had used her house, her only asset, the one thing she could leave behind, to pay for my tuition and living expenses. Quietly. Secretly. Without telling Yvette or Mateo. Without telling me. She'd let me believe the scholarship had been enough. That my part-time job covered the rest. That the stress and scraping and sleep deprivation were all mine to manage because that's what I thought strength was. And she'd never once asked for credit. The last paragraph undid me. Nina, if you ever find yourself forgetting who you are or who helped you get there, remember this. I chose you. Not out of obligation, but out of love. I didn't sleep that night. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, her letter clutched to my chest, trying to reconcile all the versions of her I'd known. The woman who packed my lunch and pressed my uniform. The woman who stayed up reading by lamplight while I studied. The woman who gave away her future so I could have one. And the worst part? I'd let her be erased. At my graduation party, I'd stood smiling beside my mom, accepting congratulations, listening to family gush about how hard we'd worked. They'd clap for my mom's sacrifices, never knowing the truth. Because I hadn't said it. I hadn't said her name. And now I couldn't. Not to her. Blood, quietly. Part 8, the living and the dead. I gave them a chance. That's the part that keeps looping in my head like a scratched record. I didn't march into the lawyer's office demanding more. I didn't throw Mari's children out of the house they didn't bother maintaining. I gave them a chance. To see the truth. To be decent. To act like family. I sat Yvette and Mateo down at the kitchen table a week after the funeral. The house was half-packed, the air stale with grief and old takeout. I brought the letter. I brought the loan documents. I brought every ounce of patience I had left. They skimmed the pages. Yvette went pale. Mateo narrowed his eyes like he was trying to read between invisible lines. She did this without telling us? Yvette whispered. She didn't want to start a war, I said. She wanted to help me without causing all this. Mateo pushed the papers back across the table. How do we know this is even real? My throat tightened. You think I forged a letter from a dying woman? You benefited, he said flatly. That makes you biased. Biased? I repeated. I didn't even know. I was living on ramen and Red Bulls while she was quietly bleeding herself dry for me. Yvette stayed quiet, her face unreadable. But Mateo didn't stop. You already got what you wanted, Nina. Your degree. Your little career. Now you want more? You think you deserve the house too. I never said that, I snapped. I said I'd help cover the mortgage. I said I'd take responsibility. You're not even her real daughter, he spat. That did it. I stood up, my hands shaking. She was more of a mother to me than either of you will ever understand. She chose me. You were just born lucky. His chair scraped loudly as he stood. Get out. Yvette didn't say a word. Didn't look at me. Just stared down at the letter like it might rewrite itself if she blinked hard enough. So I left. Not just the kitchen. Not just the house. I walked away from the illusion that biology guarantees love. That blood is thicker than betrayal. My mom called that night. Left a voicemail. Something about letting the past go. I didn't listen to the whole thing. Instead, I packed what little I owned and moved into a studio apartment near the hospital where I just started my first job as a trauma nurse. It was loud, cluttered, too hot in the summer and too cold in the winter. But it was mine. I hung Mari's picture on the wall, the one from my nursing school white coat ceremony. Every night before work, I'd glance at it and whisper I didn't forget. And I wouldn't. No matter how many people tried to erase her. No matter how many stories got rewritten to make them feel better. The truth lived in me now. And I wasn't giving it back. Blood, quietly, Part 9, echoes. The emergency room doesn't care who you are. It doesn't care if you're grieving. If you cried in the stairwell during your lunch break. If you sat in your car after your shift and screamed into the steering wheel. It only cares if you can keep moving. So I did. 12-hour shifts, 5 days a week. I learned to keep my face neutral as I cleaned up blood, held trembling hands, told mothers their sons were stable or not. I became someone reliable, someone steady. The kind of nurse Mari had trained me to be without ever saying the words. And when I couldn't sleep, I volunteered. There was a youth shelter downtown, half run by a retired social worker named Mrs. Gaines, who didn't take crap from anyone. She always said, I don't need more volunteers who want to save the world. I need people who remember what it's like to need saving. I remembered. So I showed up. At first, I gave CPR classes, passed out first aid kits, answered awkward health questions from skeptical teenagers who had seen too much too soon. But then I met Ellie. 17. All sharp angles and narrowed eyes, the kind of girl who sat in the back of every room, waiting for disappointment. She didn't talk much, but she watched everything. She reminded me of myself, the way she flinched when people raised their voices, the way she held herself like armor. I started staying later after sessions. Talking to her. Or sitting silently beside her, which sometimes worked better. Eventually she opened up. Little pieces at first, an absent mother, a couch-surfing uncle, too many nights spent in places that weren't safe. I just need to get my GED, she said one night, sitting on the curb outside the shelter. Then I'm out. I'm done with all this. I nodded. Then let's get you through it. We studied during my days off. I brought flashcards. She brought sarcasm. It worked. Until it didn't. One night she didn't show up. Or the next. Or the next. Then I got a call from Mrs. Gaines. Ellie had dropped out. No warning. No explanation. Just gone. I found her 2 days later in the parking lot behind the old library, lighting a cigarette with shaking hands. You okay? I asked. She didn't answer. I sat down beside her on the pavement. Want to tell me what happened? She blew smoke into the air. I'm not like you, Nina. I don't have people. Safety nets. Scholarships. Dead moms who gave up everything. I flinched. She noticed. Sorry. I didn't mean it like that. But she had. And that was okay. Because she was right. I did have something she didn't. Someone. So I told her the truth. About Mari. About the loan. About the silence. About how I let the wrong people take credit for the right love and how I couldn't fix it, but I could live better now. Ellie didn't say anything for a long time. Then she asked, do you think she knew? Knew what? How much you loved her? I swallowed the lump in my throat. I hope so, I said. But even if she didn't, I live like she did. Blood, quietly, Part 10, Planting Stones. The idea came suddenly on a quiet afternoon when the world wasn't asking anything of me. I was folding laundry in my overheated studio apartment, Mari's photo propped on the windowsill, her soft smile watching me like a benediction. Outside, kids were yelling, playing soccer between parked cars. The sun was warm on the linoleum. And I thought, I wish she could see this. I wish she knew. And then I thought, maybe someone else could. A week later, I opened a savings account and named it the Mari Salgado Fund. It wasn't flashy. No nonprofit paperwork, no gala dinners, no corporate backers. Just a few $100s at first, scraped together from my paychecks and the leftover graduation money I hadn't touched. The goal was simple, one student. One girl, like Ellie each year. Enough to help with GED fees, or scrubs for CNA training, or a prepaid Metro card to get them to interviews. Not to save them. Just to give them one less door slammed in their face. I told Ellie first. She laughed like I was joking, then went quiet when she realized I wasn't. She would have liked that, she said. Mari. She'd think you were corny, but she'd be proud. She'd definitely make fun of my spreadsheet, I said, smiling. But even small things feel radical when no one taught you were allowed to build them. I launched a tiny website. I made a flyer. I started asking around at shelters, youth centers, adult education programs. Most people ignored me. A few asked questions. One counselor at a local GED program said, "You remind me of someone I used to know. Someone who did the right thing even when no one clapped for it." That night, I cried in the shower. Because it hit me, no one was coming to rescue me anymore. No Mari. No family. No safety net. And I was still standing. I'd spent years bracing for the next betrayal, the next collapse. But now, I was learning how to plant things. Small things. Quiet things. Not to make up for what I lost, but to honor it. To pass it on. Blood, Quietly, Part 11, Ghost Voicemails. It was a Wednesday. Middle of the week, middle of a shift, middle of a life I was finally learning to carry without flinching. I was on my break, unwrapping a lukewarm burrito in the hospital cafeteria when I saw the missed call. Mom. No message at first. Just the familiar number like a stone dropped in my gut. I stared at it, thumb hovering over the screen, unsure if I wanted to block it or call back. I did neither. Later that night, the voicemail came. Her voice was quieter than I remembered. Older. Tired in a way that made me pause. "Hey. It's your mom. I was thinking about you. Listen, I know we haven't talked. And I know things got messy after Mari passed. But maybe it's time to let the past go. Call me if you want. Or don't. I just thought you should hear it from me." I listened to it 3 times. Not because it moved me. Not because I missed her. But because I couldn't decide what I felt. Anger? Maybe. But mostly nothing. A hollowness. Like she'd skipped all the pages of the story that mattered and flipped straight to the ending where we pretend it never happened. She didn't say Mari's name. Not once. She didn't say, "I'm sorry I let you go." Or, "I'm sorry I erased the woman who saved you." Or, "I'm sorry I clapped for myself while you stood alone." She just wanted peace, the easy kind. The kind that doesn't cost anything. I deleted the voicemail. Then I sat in the dark for a while, phone still in my hand, thinking about how long it had taken me to find my voice, and how quickly some people wanted me to give it back. Mari never asked me to forget. She asked me to remember. To live like she did. That meant I didn't owe silence to anyone who hadn't earned it. And it meant that healing, real healing, didn't always come with reconciliation. Sometimes it comes alone. Blood, Quietly, Part 12, The Revisionists. I hadn't planned to go. When Yvette's wedding invitation arrived, a soft pink envelope with my name spelled correctly for once, I left it on the counter for 3 days. I didn't RSVP. I didn't buy a dress. I told myself I was working that weekend. But the day came and I woke up with a strange knot in my chest. Not grief. Not guilt. Something else. Curiosity maybe. Or the need to look the past in the face without flinching. So I went. Yvette looked beautiful. Nervous. She hugged me like nothing had ever gone wrong between us. And for a moment I let myself believe that some parts of us were still whole, that the girls who shared a bedroom and late-night secrets were still in there somewhere. But it didn't take long for the atmosphere to shift. People looked at me like I was furniture they didn't remember buying. Mateo avoided me at first, then tried to corner me at the drink table, already tipsy. "She left you a letter and now you think you're a saint," he muttered, barely looking at me. "No," I said calmly. "But I remember her. And I'm not going to pretend she didn't matter." He rolled his eyes. "You're not her kid. You never were." I didn't answer. He wasn't worth the energy. I slipped outside, away from the dance floor and the curated playlist of feel-good songs. The sun was setting and the garden lights buzzed softly above the hedge. That's when my phone buzzed. One new message from Mom. "I know we haven't talked. I want to explain something. Please, just one call. That's all I'm asking." I stared at the screen, thumb hovering. My heart didn't race. I didn't feel anger. Or even sadness. Just tired. I locked my phone and slid it into my bag. She'd had years to explain. She chose silence. Now she wanted forgiveness packaged into a single phone call. Like all the missed birthdays, all the erasures of Mari's name, all the little betrayals could be wrapped up and tied with a bow. But not everything deserves a sequel. Not every wound needs to be reopened to prove it healed. I stood there for a long time, letting the breeze wash over me. Inside, people danced, clapped, toasted. A family reassembling itself in the shape that suited them. Let them. I wasn't theirs anymore. Blood quietly. Part 13. Her name out loud. 3 weeks after the wedding, I got an email that stopped me mid-coffee sip. Subject: nomination. Community caregiver recognition. I thought it was spam at first, some mailing list I forgot to unsubscribe from. But when I opened it, I saw my name. My real name. And below it, the nomination statement. For her tireless volunteer work with vulnerable youth, and for creating the Mari Salgado Fund, which has helped 4 young women access healthcare training and education resources. Ellie had submitted it. Of course she had. At the bottom, in her sharp, messy handwriting. She reminds me of the person I wish I'd had. I sat in my apartment staring at the screen, the weight of it creeping in slowly. Not just the recognition, but what it meant. What it required. There'd be an awards dinner. A stage. A microphone. A room full of people expecting a speech. The night came. I wore a thrifted blazer and wiped my palms on my skirt until they were dry. The venue was a community center. But they dressed it up. Fairy lights, linen tablecloths. A jazz trio playing too softly. When they called my name, I stood heart pounding and walked to the front. I didn't read the speech I'd written. Instead, I told them a story. About a woman who wasn't my mother. Not by blood, but who chose me again and again even when no one clapped for her. About how she taught me that love doesn't require permission, and that being chosen is sometimes more sacred than being born into something. I said her name, Mari Salgado, and for the first time in what felt like forever, the room clapped for her. Not for me, for her. Later, someone asked if my family had come. I just smiled and said, the parts that matter. Because they hadn't. Yvette had sent a congratulatory text. Mateo was silent. And my mom? She'd called again the week before. Left a second voicemail. I just want to explain. There's more to the story than you know. But she didn't say what. She never did. And Yvette hadn't invited her to the wedding for a reason. Not to punish her, but to keep the peace. Because even Yvette knew that Mom only reached out when silence made her uncomfortable. Never when it hurt me. So no, I didn't call her back. I had stopped waiting for the version of her that never showed up. Blood quietly. Part 14. The offer. The letter came in the mail. Real mail, not email, not a text. Heavy envelope, cream-colored, addressed in handwriting I didn't recognize. I opened it at the kitchen counter, Mari's picture watching me from its usual place above the microwave. Inside. A formal invitation to a family gathering at my mother's house. Not a birthday. Not a holiday. Just a gathering. Tucked into the card was a handwritten note. Nina, I know I haven't earned much, maybe anything. But I want to explain. I want to tell you what I never had the strength to say before. Please come. You don't have to stay. But I hope you'll give me 10 minutes. That's all I ask. Mom. I read it twice. Then a third time. It was the most honest thing she'd written in years. And I hated how much it shook me. I didn't owe her anything. I knew that. Mari had taught me that love isn't a debt, and forgiveness isn't a reward. But 10 minutes. Was that so much? I thought about Mari. About how she'd have probably told me to listen, then decide. Not because it would change the past, but because I deserved to move forward without questions clawing at my back. So I went. The house looked smaller than I remembered. Dimmer. The front steps chipped, the curtains outdated. My mother opened the door like she'd been holding her breath since she sent the letter. Nina, she said. You came. I nodded. My mouth felt dry. The living room was full of distant cousins and folding chairs. Old family photos covered the table. Food that smelled like my childhood, rice, pernil, pastelitos steamed in foil trays. But I couldn't taste any of it. She pulled me aside into the back bedroom, the one that used to be mine. It still had the dent in the wall from when I threw a shoe during a tantrum at age 8. The floor creaked the same way it always had. I didn't call to erase anything, she said. I need to tell you something before I lose the chance. I sat down on the edge of the bed, cautious. I wasn't good at being a mother, she admitted. I was scared. Broke. Angry all the time. And then Mari, she stepped in. And I let her. Because she was better at it. She looked away. I told myself I was giving you a better shot. But really, I just didn't want to watch someone else do what I couldn't. I didn't speak. My hands were clenched in my lap. She made me feel small, she said. Not by what she said, just by how easily you loved her. Tears welled in her eyes. And I hated her for it. That was the closest she'd ever come to telling the truth. Still, I didn't let her off the hook. You didn't hate her, I said. You hated that she didn't need a performance to love me. She nodded. Slowly. Like the weight of that landed somewhere deep. I'm not asking you to forgive me, she said. I just didn't want to die before I told you I know what I lost. I know what you lost. I stood. You didn't just lose me. You gave me away. And Mari picked me up. We stood there for a long time, silence wrapping around us like fog. And for the first time, she didn't try to guilt me. Didn't call me ungrateful. Didn't say, but I'm still your mother. She just let it hang. And that, more than any apology, was what I needed. Blood, quietly. Part 15, What Remains. The letter didn't fix everything. It didn't bring back Mari. It didn't erase the years of silence or the sting of being celebrated by the wrong people for the wrong reasons. But it cracked something open, not enough to rebuild trust, but enough to let in a little light. My mom never asked for more after that night. No follow-up calls. No surprise visits. Just a single envelope weeks later with a photo tucked inside. It was me at age 7, asleep on the couch, a blanket slipping off one shoulder. Mari sat beside me, half out of frame, a book open in her lap. On the back, my mother had written, I was watching. I just didn't know what I was seeing. I didn't cry. I pinned the photo next to Mari's at my desk. Then I got back to work. The Mari Salgado Fund grew. Small, steady. A local nursing school partnered with me to match one scholarship a year. Ellie finished her CNA program and now mentors the new girls who come through. She calls me boss lady and never lets me forget I used to cry over tax forms. I speak at shelters now. Community centers. Schools. I talk about Mari, about choice, about what love can look like when it's not afraid to be quiet and consistent. Some people say I'm too blunt. That I should soften the story. That I should mention forgiveness more. But I don't. Because forgiveness isn't always the finale. Still, slowly, I did let my mother back in. Not all at once. Not with warm dinners and long phone calls. But in small ways, like texting her a photo of the garden I started on my fire escape, or sending her a link to Ellie's graduation story. We meet for coffee once a month now. She always asks how work is going. Sometimes she even listens. She's trying. And I can respect the trying. But she will never take Mari's place. She knows that now. She doesn't fight it anymore. Because love isn't about reclaiming old ground. Sometimes it's about starting fresh, a few feet over, and planting something that might grow differently. What I've learned, what Mari gave me, is that being chosen changes you. It teaches you that you don't have to beg for space in someone else's life. That you are worthy not because of what you survived, but because of how you choose to keep showing up. And I show up every day. Not just for work, or for Ellie, or for the girls who remind me of myself. But for Mari. For the memory of her hands in the sink, her voice humming in the hallway, her quiet courage. For the kind of love that doesn't need applause, just a place to root and bloom. And for the girl I used to be. The one who thought silence was survival. Who now knows, the truth is where healing begins.